Oh, yeah! Alright, in case you somehow didn't know, I've been looking forward to this show ever since it was announced. In fact, out of everything coming out this year, that includes movies, shows, and games, this was my #1 most anticipated thing. And now it is finally premiering! The first 2 episodes have dropped on Disney+, and so now I talk about them. You should know the drill by now. I'm gonna talk about them with spoilers, because how can I make videos on this show without talking about the spoilers? So if you have not watched these episodes yet and you plan on it, I recommend turning away from this video. Unless you don't care, in which case, by all means, stick around. Also, I'm gonna give you another disclaimer. If you have not yet watched Star Wars Rebels, I highly recommend watching that before diving into this new show. Otherwise, you will be easily lost, like Bruce Wayne in therapy. That being said, I've seen Rebels, I know what's going on in this show, so let's finally get started on this. Ahsoka. So Ahsoka is the newest live-action Star Wars series on Disney+. It's set in the same time frame as The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, and we've seen this character in both of those shows. Ahsoka Tano, Anakin Skywalker's former apprentice, played here by Rosario Dawson. This character made her debut in Star Wars The Clone Wars. We saw her in Star Wars Rebels as well, and then The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, and now she's got her own chapter here. And like we've all been saying, this is pretty much Star Wars Rebels Season 5. This is the search for Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger. Ahsoka Tano once again teams up with Hera Syndulla and Sabine Wren. We have some new dark side of the Force using villains hunting us. Baylan Skoll, played by the late great Ray Stevenson, and his apprentice Shin Hati, not to mention Morgan Elsbeth as well, who we remember from The Mandalorian Season 2. And so the race for Thrawn and Ezra is on. So let's just dive into this first episode, part 1. I will admit, it does get a little minus point for doing that transgression, which I've recently said I don't like, and that is starting with the villains. Yeah, the show starts off introducing us to the villains, and I was like, oh, okay, so we can skip this part, right? Although that being said, they do free Morgan Elsbeth here. I guess she was being held prisoner by the New Republic, which I guess makes sense after in Mando Season 2, Ahsoka beat her. So yeah, naturally she was brought in. So now she's being freed, alright, fine. We could have just found that out later with the good guys though. I'm just saying. And so when we first meet up with Ahsoka Tano, she's in this temple and she finds this map to Thrawn, which, okay, I can't be the only one who was reminded of the map to Skywalker in The Force Awakens, right? I mean, God knows where Thrawn and Ezra are at this point in the show anyway. So how did this map come to be? I don't know. And so Ahsoka goes to meet with Hera Syndulla, returning main character from Star Wars Rebels, played here by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And of course, Mary Winstead does a great job in this role. And so Ahsoka's like, okay, yeah, I got a map to Thrawn here. And of course, Hera's like, fuck. Yeah, you can see the trauma-filled flashbacks in her eyes. I thought of Kanan straight up. Cause the feels. And so Hera's like, alright, you know who to get after this. Yeah, it's time to meet up with Sabine Wren once again. It's time to get Spectre Group back together. Which makes me wonder if Zeb's gonna have a cameo. After his brief one in Mando Season 3, I'm just saying that'd be awesome to see. And so we go to the planet Lothal, which we all know from Star Wars Rebels. And yeah, it's awesome to see in live action. It looks great. A little over CG, sure, like it looks like a planet right out of the prequels, but I mean, that is Lothal. I'm glad it was instantly recognizable. And pretty much the first thing we see there is, surprise, surprise, Clancy Brown in a cameo, playing the character he voiced in Rebels, Ryder Azadi. I love that. I recognized him instantly because I watched the Rebels finale last night. So good to know he's still on Lothal. Eventually, we do meet back up with Sabine Wren, played here by Natasha Liu Bordizzo. And of course, if you know me, you know that this is where all the emotions and feels came through for me. Cause Sabine Wren was one of my favorite characters in Rebels, if not my absolute favorite character, cause she's awesome. And so just seeing her again, now in live action, and Natasha Bordizzo does a great job in this role, is just all the stars lining up. Well, almost. She does start off this show with longer hair than I've ever seen Sabine have. So it's funny, at first I was like, is that Sabine? I don't know if that's really Sabine. And of course, by the end of episode 2, I was like, yep, that's Sabine. We'll get there. For now, she does have that longer hair. She's got that loft cat, which is just plain adorable. Oh my god, the animatronic puppet, whatever it is, it's amazing. I love it. I want one. It's so cute. And a couple of things we see with her. I mean, the scene where she plays Ezra Bridger's little hologram message. Of course, I gotta touch on that. Because it is a different message than the one in the Rebels finale. I guess Ezra left a different one specifically for Sabine, like before the whole Rebels finale thing went down. That's what I would guess. And I'm also guessing for those of you who have not watched Rebels, this scene's job is to catch you up to speed, I guess, on what's happening here. What the whole gist and vibe of the premise of the show is. But for those of us who do know Rebels, you gotta love this. The scene where Sabine is asleep and she's dreaming, you hear that dialogue where you hear the words, "The Force will be with you always." That is what Ezra Bridger said right before he disappeared into hyperspace in the Rebels finale.
The Force will be with you, always.
So that dream, vision, whatever she was having was of the events of the Rebels finale. I love that. So yeah, that's how Sabine's doing. Meanwhile, over with our villains, I do want to talk about one thing we do discover about one Morgan Elsbeth in this show. And I heard that this was a popular theory, but I never really heard it until like the other day. But yeah, it's confirmed Morgan Elsbeth is a descendant of the Night Sisters of Dathomir, who we know from the Clone Wars. First and foremost anyway, I mean the whole Darth Maul thing, like I could give two fucks about. Really, it's Merrin from the Star Wars Jedi games. She's my favorite Dathomirian character in all of Star Wars, which makes me wonder if the two of them ever knew each other at any point. Probably not. But I do think that is pretty cool about Morgan Elsbeth. That does make her a little more relevant to me anyway. Or relevant's not the word, more interesting. Cause she does have some of that Night Sister magic. She is a witch, as we do see later. That's cool. But anyway, alright, back with Sabine. The most intriguing and mysterious part of this whole thing so far is this past that Sabine has with Ahsoka Tano. Cause we learned that, I guess after the events of Star Wars Rebels, Ahsoka took Sabine Wren under her wing and like tried to train her as a Jedi? Meaning that, yeah, I guess Sabine is most likely Force sensitive. Which is a brand new development. She was not that way at all in Rebels, but I am totally fine with it. Although I guess the two of them had a falling out, they're probably both being really stubborn. Ahsoka getting that from her former master.
It's the circle of life.
And so when the two of them are talking, Ahsoka's like, here's the map. Don't run off with it. I'll be right back. You would think that as she was talking with her droid, she would have sensed, hey, Sabine's running off with the map. You know, that Force sense that Force-sensitive people have? I guess she was too distracted. Good thing is, though, is that while Sabine is off with the map, she does discover how to read it, which I thought was a really cool scene, actually. I mean, first of all, it takes its time, which is appreciated. And also, I was solving it with her. I was like, okay. Oh, that symbol matches with the map. Oh, that's really cool. And so we do unlock the map to Thrawn, and alright. We learn later that Thrawn, I guess, is in another galaxy entirely? To which I was like, whoa, alright, this is uncharted territory for Star Wars as a whole. We have never left this galaxy far, far away ever before. Now we're learning that Thrawn and maybe Ezra are exiled in this other galaxy. Holy, okay. This could be really cool, but it could also be a cringe bad story decision. I just hope the writers know what they're doing here. I'm just laying out the facts for you. Cause I mean, it is another galaxy entirely. It could be completely different from the Star Wars galaxy that we all know and love. It could have different rules altogether. I don't know. It could be ours for all we know, but it's not. The entirety of Star Wars takes place in a galaxy far, far away after all. That can't change, so yeah. But okay, so the fact that Sabine has discovered how to read this map, she's like, alright, I guess we're doing this. But then she gets caught by Shin Hati, and the two of them have a lightsaber fight. Yes, Sabine Wren uses Ezra's green lightsaber, and watching this I was like, this is awesome. We've seen Sabine use lightsabers in combat before in Star Wars Rebels, but again, just seeing it in live action just took it to a whole nother level for me. I loved every second of this fight. It was really well choreographed too. Sabine does some awesome stuff here, where she bends over backwards and defends herself. I was like, that's cool. But the fight does end with Sabine getting straight up impaled, and yeah, at first for a split second, I was like, I will admit, I was like, oh, you better not have killed Sabine just now. Holy shit, Dave Filoni. But then I was like, oh, wait, she's in other scenes in the trailer. She's alive, which, alright. Sabine Wren was just impaled and she lives. My friend calls this the Rise of Skywalker effect. Cause now it looks like characters left and right in Star Wars can be impaled by lightsabers and live through it and be fine. Yeah, I'll admit, for both me and my friend, this is like the thing we like the least about these first two episodes so far. In fact, for me, it's like the one real ding I give them. If they wanted Sabine to be hospitalized in this second episode, at least for the scene, they could have, grazed her arm or something. You didn't have to impale her and make people go, well, alright. Yeah, I just think that could have been handled better. Cause I am calling bullshit on the fact that she would survive that. What? Barely Force sensitive, barely trained Sabine Wren can handle getting impaled, but not Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn? Yeah, I call bullshit. And that is a ding off this show. But of course, I'm not gonna let that one thing ruin my enjoyment of the entirety of the rest of it. It's just one little flaw. Nothing's flawless. And so in this second episode, we find ourselves going to Corellia, aka the home planet of Han Solo. Yeah, I recognize that name, because that's where the droid who attacked Sabine originally came from. So we trace it there to its origin, and Hera Syndulla is there, and so is Chopper on the Phantom. Dude, seeing him on the Phantom, I was like, oh my god, Chopper, I love Chopper so goddamn much. Great to be with that little war criminal again. And we get some funny dialogue with him and Hera in this episode.
No, I did not go through your stuff.
That's always great. Although it does turn out that the Empire is there, using this New Republic amnesty thing as a cover, the New Republic amnesty program we remember from Mando Season 3. And so yeah, it turns out they're using this as a cover to build parts for this Eye of Sauron? Eye of Sion is what they call it. Just name-wise, it totally reminds me of the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. And so this Eye of Sion is, it turns out, this giant hyperspace ring. We remember hyperspace rings from the prequel trilogy. So I'm guessing the remnants of the Empire are creating this giant hyperspace ring to go track down Thrawn in this other galaxy. And they're building parts for it here on Corellia. And so while Ahsoka and Hera and Chopper go to deal with that, I love the talk that Sabine has with the droid Hu Yang, played by David Tennant. Because Hu Yang straight up drops some logic bombs on Sabine. Because he's like, you gotta get back into this fight. The only time you're wasting is your own. And I was like, damn, Hu Yang coming through in this scene. I just really like that dialogue. And ultimately, I guess that is what convinces her to get back into the fight. I'll get there in a second. Hera and Chopper manage to drop a tracker on the little Empire Sion part right before it goes off into hyperspace. And so good, we are tracking them, we'll know where they are. Meanwhile, Sabine, back on Lothal, she gets back into gear. I love this, she cuts her hair. Now she's got the haircut that I know Sabine to have. Right there, I was like, yep, all right. That's the Sabine I know and love. And yeah, like I predicted in my video on the trailer, this is a recreation of the final scene in Star Wars Rebels, where Sabine goes up to the mural, she touches Ezra's face on there, and Ahsoka shows up. I loved watching this, man. I was like, oh my god, again, all the emotions and feels. This is amazing. And so now we are off in search of Ezra and Thrawn. I mean, this episode ends with the villains on the Eye of Sion, and they're going after Thrawn as well. And the race is on. And that's where we leave off for now. I was like, hoo-wee! I am so into this right now. I love it. I love these characters because I've loved them for a while now. Ahsoka Tano, Hera Syndulla, Chopper, Sabine Wren. And I really am thinking that this is going to be as much Sabine Wren's show as it is going to be Ahsoka's. So why the show is just called Ahsoka, I will never know. And I gotta give props to Kevin Kiner and his score here. Cause out of all these live action Star Wars Disney Plus shows so far, this score sounds the most like old school, old fashioned John Williams Star Wars score. Which just makes this show feel that much more like Star Wars to me. I love that shit. So props to Kevin Kiner here, and I can't wait to hear the rest of your score. So, Ahsoka, Part 1, Master and Apprentice, and Part 2, Toil and Trouble. Have you watched these episodes yet? What are your thoughts on them? And what are your theories and predictions for next week's episode? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!